Today is Thursday, the 14th day of December 2023. I am George Wenner and I am here in the chambers of Wendell Alexander, attorney at law here in Antigua and Barbuda. And Mr. Alexander, you at some point in time was involved with a court case, legal proceedings involving a commissioned officer in the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force, Captain Jevonson Willock. And it's been in the news for quite some time, took the military to court, and we're hearing that there was a matter, judgment under judicial review, and judgment was handed down sometime in the courts today. And we're here with you. Can you just expound on the public the significance of this case, the real matters involved in this litigation, and what turns on this result? How important is this result?
Well, as you know, I am not involved yet in the second matter. The first matter that Mr. Willock had before the court, that was resolved in Mr. Willock's favor. Albeit that this matter have some link to the previous matter, the inextricable link between the two matters.
So can you in essence tell us what was the first matter and how
the first matter relates to some allegation of misconduct. But the defense force and the senior officers of the defense force had committed a plethora of breaches of the Defense Force Act and the Defense Force regulations, forcing the Attorney General to concede that the disciplinary charges upon which he was convicted was null and void. And the issue of costs and assessment of damages is yet to be determined by the court. The second matter relates to the commissioned officers and their status as to whether or not their employment status remain permanent, those that have permanent commission and or temporary commissions, and the question as to whether or not one can change one permanent status to a temporary status. I believe that the statute is clear. I believe that once a person has a permanent commission, you cannot, as a matter of willy-dilly, just get rid of the permanent commission and transform it into a temporary commission. If you are to do that, it will beg a lot of questions, including natural justice, the issue of fairness, and a person's life depends on what is the status of his employment. If a person is working part-time, for example, he will want to budget his status, he want to budget his life based on part-time employment, as opposed to a person who is full-time.
As I understand it, Captain Willock was commissioned by the Governor General, a regular commission, making it a full career, and he had served some 17 years. And after 17 years, they wanted to change the status of his commission.
Well, he has a permanent commission, as I understand it, since in 2015.
As a captain?
As a captain. He has 7 years going on to 8 years now in that permanent position.
At that rank?
At that captain rank. I don't see how any court of law would change that into a temporary commission, short of the court coming to the conclusion that the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force have some ulterior motive or some improper motive. I can't see any reason, anyhow, twist it, turn it upside down, the court is going to rule differently. That is why I personally didn't get involved in the matter earlier. Captain Willock is a budding attorney. He has a keen interest in becoming a lawyer. I have seen his interest. He learned the rule in some of the rules of the civil procedure. He knows them better than me. And so therefore, this was a perfect opportunity for him to show to the court that, yeah, I can do this on my own.
And he did
it on his own without any help from my part. Mm-hmm. I mean, there might come a stage where, and I think the time has come for me to now take over. But other than that, I prefer to leave him to handle those persons at the Attorney General office, because I know he can handle himself quite well. Now, many persons may not know this, but I was living with Captain Willock's grandmother for 7 years, who cared for me and who fooled me and take care of all my expenses. After 7 years, I was called to the bar. I then moved out, but I was living with her for 7 years. Captain Willock legal fees, right up to the Privy Council, have already been paid for by his grandmother. So I will fight to the bitter end anybody who feel that they can just rip shot over him. If they want to bring the war, tell them bring it on.
Do you have it? They don't want to bring the war. Okay. So as we understand it, the court has ruled that his. Can you explain?
What he filed
and on the second proceedings, can you explain exactly what the court ruled?
The second proceedings, Captain Willock brought an interim injunction under urgent procedures for the court to restrain the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force from changes in employment status from permanent commission to temporary commission or short-term commission. The court had granted a mini interim injunction pending the hearing today based on the fact that a senior officer, Orlando Michael, from the Antigua and Barbuda Police Force, from the Antigua and Barbuda Defense Force, did not want to commit himself to an undertaking not to trouble his employment status, etc. Now, when a court asks you if you'll be willing to do an undertaking, the court is only asking you as a matter of courtesy. But if you're going to tell the court no, the court will see how pompous and wrong you are, and the court will say, okay, you're trying to undermine the respect of the court, so I will grant it. So the court granted the mini interim injunction until today. But I knew that it would have been extremely difficult for the Attorney General office not to concede this unless they're going to look very foolish, because the affidavit of Mr. Willock, as well as the grounds and his application for wanting this interim, are well placed.
Yes.
He are more likely to be prejudiced. He gave an undertaking as to damages. The balance of convenience is everything within his favor, and so therefore it would have been very difficult for the Attorney General office to be able to surmount those difficulties and those submissions. So I am not surprised, and I think they did the honorable thing to concede on the interim injunction until the substantive matter is heard. But of course, they wouldn't have to face Captain Willock this time. They will face me.
So there you have it, folks. Fighting words from attorney at law Wendell Alexander. George Wenner reporting for you live here in St. John's, Antigua.